Ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who know better, start your engines. It's time for another lap around the big gassy fireball in the sky, and that means only one thing: new games. Yes, we've got another year of games coming, and let me say that, from where I stand, 2025 is shaping up to be a banner year. For Nintendo fans such as myself, the specter of the Switch successor looms larger this year than it ever has before. It's definitely gonna come out this time, yes sirree. And if the last Nintendo console launch year is anything to go by, we're set to be feasting on great games the whole year. And even better, there's plenty of games coming from across the industry. This list, twice as long as last year's, doesn't have any Switch 2 games on it. Well, sort of. We don't know any of the specific games yet, of course, so we're left with the games that we do know about, and that's a lot. There's some great games that are set to release this year, so let's talk about them. Here's the ground rules for the list. They're mostly the same as last year's. The only games I'm talking about today are games that have been confirmed by their developers to be targeting a release date this year. No following release patterns that haven't been confirmed, no games without a release date of any kind. And, an exciting new rule for this year, I'm not going to repeat entries from last year. Though Earthblade would top this list again, make no mistake, I talked about it last year, so I won't repeat myself. It looks amazing, I'm ready to name my firstborn after it, yada yada yada. Before we dive in, I do want to point out one thing. The most anticipated games of 2024 video ended up being the most robust channel plan I've ever made. I talked about 5 games, only 3 of which ended up releasing, and I made videos on all of them. I can't promise that I'll make a video on all 10 of these games this year, but if you want to know what kinds of games I'm most interested in, this is the video to watch. Finally, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss these videos. I've got big plans for the year, and you don't want to miss a thing. With that, let's get started. I'm Volcaronite, and here's the 10 upcoming games I'm most excited for. Alright, I want to start here because I sort of offhandedly said in my video on the Game Awards that of the 5 games nominated for most anticipated, Grand Theft Auto 6 was my personal least favorite. That probably wasn't quite true since I don't have much of an opinion about either Death Stranding 2 or Monster Hunter Wilds. And while that is true for GTA 6, I never really got into GTA 5, this game release is set to be one of the biggest events in the history of gaming, and I'm excited for it. Do I even need to do the thing where I talk about what GTA 6 is? It's an upcoming open-world RPG by Rockstar, sequel to GTA 5, and it might just be the most anticipated game of all time. I don't know, maybe Elder Scrolls 6 takes the cake, but Bethesda's kind of torched its credibility over the past few years, so my money's on this game. Like I said, I never got into GTA 5. It's certainly an impressive game, and the way the community has latched onto it with modders and streamers and all sorts of different expansions and groups around it is truly remarkable. Knowing that GTA 6 is not just going to be a game, but a creative platform for the next decade of virtual criminals is really impressive. And who knows, maybe I'll get into this one. AI Limit is one of the 2 games on this list that are here only because they look cool. It's a sci-fi Souls-like that actually looks pretty compelling. Now, last year, Sekiro was my favorite game that I played. It's an incredible game that taught me a valuable lesson. I actually don't like Souls-likes very much. My favorite part of most Souls-like games are typically separate from the most Souls-y elements: rich worlds and explorations, single weapon combat, learning and besting bosses. The more traditional Souls elements like slower movement and fights, RPG leveling, and character building systems, choosing weapons and armor builds, I really dislike all of these. This is a bit unrelated, but I had a moment playing Elden Ring that really turned me off to the game. I'd played through beating Godric right when the game launched, but kind of hit a wall in Raya Lucaria. I was being tossed by every world enemy, boss fights were a joke, and the joke was on me to be clear, and I just wasn't having fun. I put the game down and didn't pick it up for 2 years. Then, last year, in preparation for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, I picked it back up with the intention of finishing the game. I did it, well, I still haven't beat Elden Beast, but I did beat Malenia, with the help of some veterans of the game who like it a heck of a lot more than I do. I showed them where I left off, and I showed them my stats. They, separately and without talking to each other, told me the same thing. I had played the game wrong. This was incredibly demotivating, and it genuinely kind of ruined the game for me. It's not my friend's fault, of course, it's the game's fault. That the game allows you to make character development and leveling choices that can make the game almost impossible to beat for players newer to Souls-likes is terrible. It wasn't until playing Sekiro that I realized what these ultra-hard games should feel like. It shouldn't be about leveling up your intelligence stat before anything else, or making sure you don't miss the missable talisman that makes spell damage viable. It's not about grinding your character to where they should be. It's not about learning to enter each boss arena already dodge rolling. It should be about getting better at the game. Okay, this is more of a tangent than I planned, but we're in too deep now. It taught me that the best games are those where your character doesn't change very much while you play. Maybe your numbers go up a bit, not stats you choose, but just overall increases, and maybe you get some secondary moves. But your base character moveset, the combat itself, remains unchanged throughout. That's what I love, that's what I want, and that's why I'm not that big on Souls-likes. By the way, this isn't to imply that Souls-likes aren't skill-based at all. Obviously, the games are hard, and practice will get you better at the game. But that experience I had where it turned out that I had leveled myself into a way that multiple Souls veterans could independently conclude was wrong was unbelievably deflating. And it's something that simply cannot happen in games like Sekiro. Anyway, I bring this up now because it's what I want from AI Limit. I hope this game is less about those RPG leveling elements and more about simply getting better at the game. From trailers and the demo, I know that there are some more classic Souls elements and that your weapon changes throughout play, but hopefully this game has a higher focus on skill than stats. It's currently set to release on March 27th, according to the PlayStation Store, and I'm excited to give it a try. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love Celeste. It absolutely reigns among my favorite games of all time. As a platformer, as a story, as an experience, it's simply one of the finest games to ever be created. The team that made it is making Earthblade, which holds the honorary #1 spot on this list every year until it comes out. It's just that good. A huge part of what makes Celeste as good as it is the music. The soundtrack of the game is quite simply perfect. I listen to it all the time. It features in several videos on my channel. It's awesome. The composer, Lena Raine, has been recognized for her incredible work. She's been contracted to make music for several games, including Minecraft. She's immensely talented. Well, this year, she's making a game of her own. Another Reel looks to be something of a shoot-'em-up RPG with charming pixel art and a meaningful story. To be honest, I'm more excited for the new music of this game than anything else, but I have immense creative trust for Lena Raine, so I'm looking forward to playing this game completely. Hello. This is Volk from the future. You can tell it's the future because the audio is much worse. Z already did all the audio mastering stuff. Z is so awesome. Go check out his channel, zsp.mp4. Anyway, it was while I was editing the footage of this section on Another Reel that I realized that Another Reel doesn't actually have a release date. I had just written it down on my list of most anticipated games of 25 that I had been keeping, but it's not scheduled to come out this year. It doesn't have a release date. So it doesn't get this spot on the list. Ha ha ha. So let's pick a different game. What came out? What was announced at TGA? Okami was the best. Doesn't have a release date. Witcher 4, not until 27, I bet. Phantom Blade Zero? No, that's probably 26. That doesn't have a release date. Let's go with Elden Ring Night Rain. Yeah. That game looks pretty cool. I hope it has a Sekiro parrying system. Yes, this whole video is just about how I want Sekiro 2. Sorry about that. I'm not that sorry about it. This is not scripted. This is the first thing I've ever recorded that's not scripted. Okay, this video went off the rails somehow. Thank you. It's Elden Ring Night Rain is the number 8 slot, but Another Reel is still cool. Okay, bye-bye. So I've been searching for my next high ever since playing Sekiro last summer. The combination of atmosphere, combat badassery, and overall vibe of the game is unlike anything I've ever played before or since. It's just one of the best, and I'm in hot pursuit of my next hit. One of the places I sought out for my next Sekiro experience is Ghosts of Tsushima. It's a game starring a samurai guy in a historical Japan falling to invasion. That's pretty close. And while the game isn't the Sekiro-like I was looking for, it is still a plenty good game. It's very pretty, combat is a bit hack and slash, but still very fun, and I found myself eager to play it for a while whenever I sat on my couch. Well, at the Game Awards last month, and last year I guess, the sequel to this game was announced. Ghosts of Yotei is coming out next, and I hope that it's a great game. In particular, I'm looking for a more involved, reactive combat. Yes, I'm looking for Sekiro 2 Electric Boogaloo, stop mocking me. But even though this game won't be that, I am still looking forward to it. The original has a neat open world, a reasonably coherent plot, and combat that I found fun. So more of that is definitely something to be excited about. Wu Chang Fallen Feathers is the second of the 2 games on this list that's here solely because of how cool it looks. It's another Souls-like game, and I basically feel towards this game the same way I feel about AI Limit. I hope that it has a higher focus on player skill than it does on stats and builds. This game rates a bit higher than AI Limit on this list simply because I think that the movement and sheer visual spectacle looks better in this game than what I've seen of AI Limit. I hope it's a good game. You didn't forget about Mio, did you? Mio was announced at the Nintendo Indie World last summer, and it was one of my favorite announcements from the show. I can't quite describe what drew me into this game so deeply. It's gotta be some combination of the incredibly fast and fluid movement and the unique color palette and atmosphere of the game. The game just looks cool. The developers of this game previously made the Limbo-like game Shady Part of Me, which was pretty well received, so I'm confident that these guys know what they're doing. Mio, okay, quick rant, Mio also has the FTL faster than light thing, where its title is the abbreviated initials followed by a string of 3 words that each start with those initials, implying that the initials stand for something else. It's just confusing, so I'm gonna do what I do with FTL and just ignore the words. Anyway, I'm excited for Mio. It's got no release date more specific than 2025 at this point, which is true of most of the games on this list, but we're here and it could be any day. I was a little burned by the relatively quiet indie games I most highly anticipated last year, so I'm trying to keep my expectations in check. I also played 9 Souls right at the end of the year, not to mention the fact that I just crowned Animal Well my Game of the Year 2024, so I've eaten well with Metroidvanias recently. Hopefully, Mio can compete. Vibes, vibes, vibes. To be honest with you, I really don't like that word. I barely even understand it. Why isn't it atmosphere or ambience or even experience? Of course, when I look at the Coffee Talk games, I better understand it. Those words are insufficient to describe what makes these games, or visual novels or whatever, so compelling. I don't know about you, but I'm a big coffee shop guy. I love to get out of the house and do some work. In fact, right now I'm writing this in an adorable outdoor coffee shop. I'm enjoying the weather, listening to the Stellar Blade soundtrack. I do wish the coffee here was a little better, to be honest, but that's beside the point. It's the people, the atmosphere, the link in your head between the smell of coffee and the feeling of productivity. That's vibes, you know? It's what the Coffee Talk games are trying to encapsulate, and I think that they're immensely successful. That's why I'm excited for the latest game in the series, Coffee Talk Tokyo. It's taking us to a different location, so it's not a direct sequel the same way Hibiscus and Butterfly was back in 2023. But that's okay, I'm still plenty excited for it. A new experience in this urban fantasy rendition of reality with new characters and stories and drinks to serve. I'm just here for the vibes, you know? Judas, the debut game by Ghost Story Games, the spiritual successor to the BioShock games, the next game by BioShock creator Ken Levine, is almost here. I'm so unbelievably excited for this game. Now, I'm on record for saying that I don't like first-person shooter games basically at all. It takes something really special in a first-person shooter to get me on board. In fact, there's only 3 series that I can really think of that are genuine first-person shooters that I've gotten into. The Fallout games, the Metroid Prime games, boy, I wonder if we'll hear from that series again in this video, and the BioShock games. And what do all of these games have in common? Well, they're sci-fi, first-person exploration and world-based experiences with the shooting mechanics augmented by a bunch of extra abilities and stories so much that they're hardly shooter first. What can I say? I guess I like my FPS games like I like my calamari, so covered in fry that I can barely tell I'm eating squid. Wow, we've got weird tangents today. Anyway, Judas is set to be the spiritual successor to BioShock, and I am so excited. From what I've seen in the trailers and Ken Levine's interviews, it seems to be taking the story and world very seriously. A BioShock-esque story taking place on a huge starship on its way to a new planet, sci-fi and punk, and just play awesome. That hits me where I live. And just looking at the game, it looks a lot like BioShock Infinite, especially in its creature design and movement. While Infinite isn't my favorite game of the 3, though the Buried at Sea DLC might be my favorite experience in the series, it's still a great game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Judas has in store. Just, you know, maybe leave the quantum timeline stuff at home this time. Anyway, this game is supposed to release no later than March 2025, which is really soon. In fact, I anticipate this game releasing before anything else on this list, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Come on, you guys already know that I'm a little Nintendo fanboy, and while I don't love absolutely everything they do, looking at you, brothership, that doesn't stop me from being excited for their next releases. And let me tell you, 2025 is set to be one of the best years of Nintendo in almost a decade. Why is that? Well, the Switch 2 or whatever is being announced soon. In fact, we're kind of expecting the reveal any day now. A new Nintendo console with the graphical power that falls somewhere around the PS4 Pro. As far as I'm concerned, that's plenty for what they're doing. In fact, I'm more excited for the games that they'll announce with the Switch 2. One of these games, at least a game I hope is going to be a Switch 2 game, is Pokemon Legends Z through A. Look at the trailer. This is cyberpunk Pokemon. I know that there's only so much to go on from here, but it just looks cool. I actually have a whole video talking about my thoughts and opinions from the trailer when it first dropped, a whole year ago, and they haven't changed much since. I do hope that the extra year without any Pokemon titles dropping gave Game Freak enough time to finish and polish the game, though my hopes are somewhat mixed on that front. What I really want is for this game to kind of have the year to itself. Pokemon games are released in generations, typically with a pair of games introducing 100 or so new Pokemon, and this happens like clockwork every 3 years. But I really hope that Game Freak breaks this trend, allows Legend Z its own year as the primary Pokemon platform, and takes its time on Generation 10. Technically, this November will be 3 years since Scarlet and Violet, so in some ways, it's time for a new generation. I hope they don't release it. I'm actually working on a fairly substantial video on some ideas and opinions I have for Legend Z, and unless we get a surprise Switch 2 announcement or a Nintendo Direct, it'll be the next video out on the channel. But until those specifics, I just hope this game is as good as it deserves to be. And you know, I hope it runs at more than 3 frames per second. Come on. You guys know me, you know who I am, you know what I do. I love Metroid. Love it. Last year, when I made my Animal Well review, I had to get a little footage of Metroid Dread for the video. After I published the review, the very next thing I did was to sit down and play the rest of the game, for like the 10th time. It's such a good game. Well, this year, after over 8 years of waiting, we are finally getting Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And my excitement is unable to be put in words. So I won't even try. Instead, I just hope that this game is the series evolution that we've been waiting for, and that it gets a native Switch 2 version. I want this game to be gorgeous and compelling, and I think it has potential. The trailer does look really good, even if it's got a few little graphical stumbles, but they're nothing that the extra horsepower of a new generation of console can't buff out. I said this in my video on the Nintendo Direct that announced this game's release last year, but I genuinely hope that it's delayed enough that a Switch 2 version is the flagship. I want Metroid Prime 4 to be incredible, and as capable as the current Switch is, I think that waiting for the Switch 2 is the move at this point. Above all though, above everything else, I want this game to be a true evolution of this series. As much as I love the Metroid Prime games, I do think that the 3D Metroidvania experience of Samus going to a new planet, gaining the same group of upgrades and killing the same sorts of alien enemies is a bit played out. I don't know how much hope I should have that they'll really shake up the formula with this game, but I still believe. A new kind of upgrade, or maybe some populated cities or places to explore. I know that the Metroid games are all about isolation and cosmic loneliness, but I think this would be a great game to move beyond those series tropes. Anyway, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is coming this year, and I'm so excited to fall in love with this game. Well, there we go. The games that are coming out this year that I am most excited for. Let me know what games you most anticipate coming out this year in the comments, and get subscribed so you don't miss the videos I'll make on these games as they come out. You can check out my video on the best games of 2024 while you wait. My next video, unless we get a surprise Switch 2 announcement, will be on Pokemon Legends Z through A. It's about my hopes and ideas, and it's all about me. Subscribe so you can be the first to see it. But that's all I've got for you today, so enjoy your day and take care.